shielded them from the bad, but I didn't shield myself. And so I projected all this bad, these bad situations and all this negativity on them, and they had no idea.
Welcome to Trial to Triumph, hosted by Caleb Johnson, the show about leaning into life's constant testing on your way to realizing your biggest blessings.
How's it going, everyone? My name is Caleb Johnson, host of From Trial to Triumph, and on this show we talk about I interview people that have gone through tremendous trials and have come out triumphant, and we might talk a little bit about real estate today, but even if you aren't a real estate investor, there are still things that you can take away from these life lessons, and I will do my best to point those out because they affect my day-to-day life as well. So without further ado, I want to allow our guest to introduce herself a little bit. And today we have Jennifer Falloon on the show. So Jennifer, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much, Caleb, for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I'm really excited about this. And I the first time we spoke, I almost, you kind of shared your story with me then, and it was really moving for me as well. So I'm really excited about this today. So if you don't mind, can you give our listeners just a quick background about yourself, kind of where you started your career and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a single mom for 6 years, and it was a very hard, tumultuous, lots of life lesson in that 6 years. And then met my husband and was so blessed to be able to live, the life I wanted to live. I got to, be a stay-home mom and just love on my kids and kind of make up for the damage that I had done in the previous 6 years. And yeah, so it was just really great. And we moved to San Antonio, where my husband wanted to get into real estate. And I wasn't super hyped about it, but I wanted him to, do what he wanted to do. And so we went to a 3-day RIA that, they sold us this 3-day boot camp is what they did. We went to a RIA, they sold us a 3-day boot camp. And I said, okay, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. So I want to purchase the VIP ticket, which was very expensive. It was like $1,000 a piece or something. And I was working at the time. My kids were older. Cameron, my oldest son, was 19 at the time. And so, they're self-sufficient. I was back in the workforce, and my boss would not allow me off that 3 days to attend this boot camp. And so right at the same time this was kind of going on, my son was trying to get into the military. And we had been very transient. We had moved in St. Louis. We were from St. Louis. We moved to Florida, moved to Texas, and during that transient few years, they kept, losing his paperwork, and he'd have to reapply, and nobody would help him because they weren't going to get credit, for his ship out. It was just this whole mess. And he came downstairs one day and was like, I just want to let you know that if I don't get into the military this time, because we were waiting for an answer, I am going to kill myself. And he's like, I just wanted to let you know so that you can prepare. So, if you need to get a, burial plot or, a life insurance policy, whatever you need to do to prepare. And I don't want to be cremated. So, and then he leaves the room, and I just broke down, and I was like, and I would never admit this to him. I guess he's going to find out when he listens to this, but I've been praying like, God, don't let this kid go in the military. You hear all these horrible, stories, these tragic stories, and I just did not want him to go. And so then I immediately started praying otherwise. I was like, God, this kid has to go in the military. Like, I cannot lose my son. And so, I just broke down and prayed. So as it would, God would have it, my boss would not allow me to go to this 3-day boot camp. I paid for 2 VIP tickets. 2 people were going. So I told Cameron, pack your bags. You're going to Austin for the weekend to this real estate seminar. And he said, that's terrible. I don't want to go. And I said, I don't care. You're going. And so him and my husband went. And that Friday night, he's calling me on the phone. And his attitude and his voice and everything about his demeanor had changed complete 180. And he's like, this is my purpose. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is everything I've ever wanted. And, I didn't know. And he's like, now I can't get into the military. And he's like, this is, everything is going to, fall apart if I do go into the military. And so therein lies our transition into real estate, where I thought that I was just going to be a backup for my husband, a support for my husband. And it turns out that, Cameron at 19 years old, really needed somebody to take the helm and steer and be the leader in it. And so that's what I did. And so to this day, that was, 4 years later, 5 years later, we're still doing it. We're doing it full time, and it's, saved his life. And, I get to own a business with my son, which is very exciting and fun to be.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Praise God. I mean, it really sounded like that was a God thing, that he wanted to go into the military, and then you started praying. I think that's afterwards he told you that, and you started praying then, God, let this kid go in the military. And after that, after he told you that, what was your attitude towards him? And the reason I ask is just because I see some parents, especially in today's generation. It's not everybody, but I do see it often, especially more now, that it's almost like the kids run the parent's life. And I don't think that's a good way to raise your children, honestly. And so I'm wondering, it didn't sound like that was you at all, because you told them, hey, look, you're going to this, and you paid for 2 tickets, and that was that. So how was your demeanor and attitude towards him after he shared that with you?
I was terrified, right? And so, I just kept trying to love on him and, let him know, like, there is a purpose. Just because you're 19 years old, for goodness sakes. Like, very few 19-year-olds know their purpose in life. And even if you think you know it, the tides change, right? And so I just tried to, love on him and impart as much wisdom as I could without being naggy, right? So, I just wanted him to know that he was loved. I just wanted him to know that there is a purpose. And just because you don't know it right now, or you're not getting your way, right, doesn't mean to end your life, and this was not a child that had really, really dealt with depression. Like, we, had some bouts, of course, as, teenagers will and stuff, but this wasn't a child that, really lived in a depressive state. He was a very happy child, very outgoing, but he's also very driven. And so I could see where if he wasn't being driven, he didn't feel like he had purpose. And I just wanted him to, every chance I got, just tell him there is a purpose for you, and you're loved. And, if you weren't here, a lot of lives are devastated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's great that you shared that with him, because there's so many people, maybe not so many people, but people that listen to this and they go through hard times. And let's say someone's been working at a job for 30 years and you're laid off, and you think, well, that's it. I'm done. But there's so much that happened for a reason. And I believe that God has something for us, and nothing surprises God. So obviously that happened for a reason, and it's a lot harder to say, especially when it's hard to hear that whenever after the fact, right? Because an outsider on looking into that would say, oh, well, God's got a plan. And so that's hard to kind of digest and even say, but that's even the hardest thing that happened. It doesn't surprise God. So I think that's great that you were still positive towards him. And that's great. So what kind of real estate did you did your husband and your son kind of joint venture or go into business together?
No. So my husband, God love him, he foots the bill, right? So he still has a W-2 job. It's, very high. He's an executive, so it's a very high income earning job. And so he's pretty much, paid for everything. Our travel expenses, our marketing, everything has come from his W-2, which we're desperately trying to get him out of. And so it was just, Cameron and myself doing the thing. I am very mission or driven. I have to have a mission. And so we started our business actually helping people who were going through foreclosure, stopping the foreclosure process, finding them safe, clean, affordable place to live, and just making sure that they had money to kind of start this new life. And then we kind of transitioned. I transitioned more to multifamily because we have some like 4,000 people a day, I think, like moving into San Antonio. It's ridiculous. We have a major housing crisis. And so I was unable to find adequate housing for these people who were already losing their homes. And so I just said, oh God, if I could just get like a 20-plex apartment complex, or a 20-plex unit, I could move these people in there. So it's safe and it's affordable and it's clean. And so I moved into multifamily, and then, now we're closing 100 plus complexes, 100 plus door complexes. And then Cameron kind of moved into the wholesaling. But it was funny because, again, for 6 years, I was a single mom and I struggled, and, I just, could not get out of financial crisis no matter what I did. And if I had an extra $100 in the bank and I was like, okay, what bill can I pay extra? What can I do with this? Something would happen and it would cost $100. And so I could never get ahead. And it was awful. And so when I learned, we're learning all these different niches that, are in real estate. And when I learned about wholesaling, I literally grieved. Like, I spent a day and I just grieved for the single mom from years before that she did not know about wholesaling. And basically what wholesaling is you contract a house at discount, and then you take this contract and you sell it to an end buyer, somebody that will hold it as a rental or keep it as a fix and flip, but you're basically just selling the contract. And depending on what you buy a house for, a contract is, about $10,000, more or less. And I just thought, even if I had known how to do this, what would $10,000 a month have done for me? If I just done one a month at $10,000, what would that have changed? How many bills could I have knocked out with that? Probably all of them. I could have paid my car off. I could have, bought a house. I could have done so much money, but so many things with this money, but I didn't know. And I grieved, and it kind of, again, became my mission to find people that are in financial hardship and teach them this, because this is also a very free way to get into real estate. You don't really have to have any money. You have to have time, but you don't have to have any money. And it just broke my heart to have not known about this. And I'm very passionate about teaching people that are in financial hardship. Like, you don't have to stay there. There is ways to make money without having to have any of your own money. And then I learned how to do that in multifamily too. There are ways that you can actually own apartment complexes with zero money out of your own pocket. And I just thought, what powerful concepts that, people don't know about. And if we can teach people, there's really no reason for anybody to be broke.
Mm-hmm. Right. And just so our listeners understand what wholesaling is, and Jennifer, please correct me if I'm wrong, but wholesaling is really whenever let's say someone that's going to sell a house and you say, well, I'll buy it, or you say, maybe I'm going to get the property under contract and I'm going to sell the contract to someone that I know wants the property, or someone that I know is going to close the property. So you get the property under contract and then you sell usually for a fee, like you said, Jennifer, maybe $5,000 to $10,000, depending on the property, or depending on the size of the deal. And then you sell that to somebody else, and you have no real skin in the game, right? And whenever the property closes, you get your fee, and you just made $5,000 to $10,000 with no money really put in, no risk. Does that sound right, Jennifer, what I just said?
That's exactly right. Spot on.
Okay. And so that can help someone that is in financial need. And who do you recommend do that? Because is that kind of, if anyone's in financial need, do you recommend that to everyone, or is there something else that you recommend that are in that financial situation?
And again, it would depend. So that would definitely entail a conversation. So that's the easiest way, I think, to get started. But if this were somebody that had, a job, say in a hospital, and you had access to nurses and doctors, I'd be like, you know what, even better way to get in is like, here's a script. Tell them that, you're in partnership with somebody that's buying apartment buildings, and they can come in and, with their money and, own apartment complexes too, right? So another very free, easy way to come into a real estate ownership is, bringing the money, and then they have a job that could be something super simple, not time consuming at all, and then they own apartments as part of the GP for bringing money, which is also very easy. So, like, do you know money? Like, if you don't have any money and you don't know any money, then yes, wholesaling is your lane. But again, you have to have the time to put into it. If you don't have time because you're, working in a busy atmosphere, but you're surrounded by executives or medical professionals, talk to them, have a conversation with them, bring them on board as investors, and then you own a GP stake in apartment buildings, which also can be, substantial in pay.
And I want to share with everybody, even if you don't want to be in real estate, there's many other ways to make money, side money, if you want some extra income, whatever that is. But I think what Jennifer really kind of just shared with us is that there's always a way. And I believe Robert Kiyosaki said this. So a very large, well-known real estate investor said, the question that you want to ask is, how do I do it? Not, I can't do it, or any other excuse really, but say, how can I do it? And then other doors will open and your mind kind of starts to shift. And so, Jennifer, I wanted to move and ask you, with your main mission being to help people, and now you're buying these large apartment complexes, so it sounds like you're able to help more people. How are you seeing let's say the residents or the tenants in your apartments? How do you help them? Is it through financial aid, or improving the property, or adding other ways to help them?
It's really just being cognizant of needs. So yes, I do make sure my apartments are very clean. They're very safe. Typically when we'll buy apartments, they'll have those orange, yellowish, dingy lights that don't resonate any light at all. That's one of the very first things I change. Like, I put in bright LED lights. I want lights in the hallways. I always look at my apartments through a lens of, if a single mom lived here and she had two children, two tiny children, would they be safe here? Does she feel safe walking from her car to her door? I want to make sure those things are in place. We vet our tenants very well. We want to make sure that we have safe, inviting, kind people, as much as we can in our apartments. I have one example. We took over some apartments in Slidell, Louisiana, and the manager that was on site at the time said, we have this guy. He's an older gentleman. He's, mentally disabled, but he works. And so, he'll never pay 100% of his rent on the first. He pays throughout the month, but by the end of the month, his rent is paid. And, he knows that he's a burden, and, he feels bad about this. So he'll actually go up and down the road of our apartment complex and pick up trash. And there's a small little pod of apartments where elderly people have lived. It may be at one time it had been an assisted living, and he'll watch for them to come in with their groceries. And especially if it's raining, he'll go and carry their groceries in for them and help them. And he just tries to, give back. And so then the manager said, I pay his late fee every month, so he doesn't have that expense. And so I said, okay, well, the day that I take over, his late fee, he never has a late fee. Nobody pays it because it doesn't exist. There is no late fee. And he's allowed to pay, as he sees fit. And his rent is to never to go up. If he lives, for as long as I own these apartments, his rent stays what it is today. And that's, we do raise rents as we make the apartments, nicer. And I'm very fair about, the rents. I don't jack them up ridiculous. Like, I want my people to stay. And but his rents will never go up. And so that's, being cognizant of who your tenants are and what their needs are. I, as an owner and an operator, I want to be aware of those so that I can intervene in and when necessary.
That's awesome. I love that story. That's very moving. And I want to also touch on my mom was a single mom raising me. And what other way, if there's a single mom listening to this, what would you say to motivate them, inspire them, or maybe some ways that can benefit them financially? Do you have any anything to say to them?
Oh my gosh, there would be so much I would want to say to them. That's a whole other podcast. Like, as single moms, we carry a lot of guilt, right? We're just inundated with guilt, and we can never do anything right. And I just want to say to them, like, please love yourself, right? We're all doing the best we can. And don't listen to anybody that's telling you otherwise, right? That you're being a good mom. If you're loving your kids and they're fed, and they're, tucked in at night and told that they're loved, then you're doing a good job. And don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. And God, do not tell yourself otherwise, right? And just do the best you can. Your kids know that they're loved. And as long as that's what they know, then all is forgiven. There's so many times where, I thought, oh God, I just blew it. My kids had this horrible, childhood, and, all this baggage you must carry around. And I've gone to both my children, and I've cried, and I've said, please forgive me for, all the stuff that I've done and all these things that have happened. And both my kids looked at me like I was insane. Like, they had no idea. I should have been talking Swahili to them. They had no idea what I was talking about. And they were like, we had a great childhood. Like, we didn't know, like, I had shielded them from the bad, but I didn't shield myself. And so I projected all this bad, these bad situations and all this negativity on them. And they had no idea. They were clueless. They had a great childhood. They felt loved. They were, they felt protected. They felt like they had everything that they ever wanted and needed. So be careful harboring unnecessary guilt, and don't project that. If your kids are happy, let them be happy. Don't let them know that you're broke, or let them know that you're struggling. Let them be happy. And if you're broke, there's no reason to stay broke. And even if you were like, there's no way I would do anything with real estate, there are other side hustles that cost very little money, that you can make good money at. And just find one, and what do you have? Do you have time, or do you have money? That's all you need to get started, and just find a good mentor that, will get you started.
How, you might have just touched on it a little bit. I want to dig deeper into that, though. When you said, it really hit me that you don't need to stay broke if you are broke. and you just a second ago said find a mentor that is doing what you kind of want to do. How else do you recommend to those single moms that let's say they aren't where they want to be financially, and it's just like with your experience, you get $100 and it's gone, just something happens. So what else would you say to them to get unbroke? And by the way, listeners, if you're not a single mom, if you're a single guy, I mean, there's many other ways this can still apply to you, so that you don't, so that if you don't want to be broke, you don't have to be broke. So Jennifer, is there anything else you recommend to those people?
Here's the wonderful thing is, back when I was the single mom from 2003 to 2009, I didn't have, I know we had the internet, but we didn't have the internet, right? Like, we don't have the internet that we have today. There was no Google. I didn't know, or, we didn't have the means to like Google like free side hustles or how to start real estate. Like, now we Google everything. And so, the internet is your best friend, but you just have to be careful of the mentor you choose. But you can Google free side hustles and, probably there's 1,000 things, that will pop up. Are you crafty? Sell your crafts on Etsy. If you're a good salesman, and you can sell ice to an Eskimo, do something, do an MLM. And there are a lot of MLMs that you can join that are cheap. They won't be free, but they're cheap. And again, I don't want to push real estate, but that's, what I know, and what I know that, is free. But even if you did just 2 or 3 wholesale deals and you hated it, you're done. Take your money and go into something else that, you may not have been able to do because it cost $100 or $1,000, but that's really what you wanted to do. Wholesale one deal and then go do what you want to do, so there's just so much, and the internet is, infinite knowledge. So definitely take advantage of that. But just be careful when choosing your mentor, that, you're choosing somebody that, as best you can know, will steer you in the right direction, not rip you off, love you through the way, help you along the way, be a support along the way, and, in all the ways too, like emotionally, spiritually, just somebody that, you kind of become married in a way. And that's somebody, a mentor that really wants to help you and see you succeed. So find that mentor.
A mentor's been, for me, a huge part of my life. And can you tell the story about how you found your first mentor, so that might give our listeners a little bit of a perspective of how that might happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So after I left my job, I realized that here in San Antonio, I left my job and I had went right to work as soon as we moved here. And I realized I didn't have any friends, like nobody. I had nobody. So the internet. So here, I went on the internet and I was just like, events near me, and found a meetup of women. And at the time, they've disbanded since then, but it was women helping women to network. And so I said, this is perfect. This is what I need. I need other women. I need to learn to network, and I want to make friends. And so I showed up for a coffee, and the lady that was in charge of this coffee clique, is what they called them, was a business success coach. And I was like, I need a business success coach. I've never ran a business and I don't know what to do. And so I hired her, and we became amazing friends. And to this day, we are the best of friends. And she's coached me for the last 5 years. And she's coached me on how to move my needle. Every time I need to move my needle, and again, we're friends, so we live life on a daily basis. So she knows everything about my personal life, my spiritual life, my business life. And she knows when I'm stagnant. And so then she's like, all right, let's write a book. And I said, okay, let's write a book. So now she's helping me write a book. And then she said, we need to make a course, and she's helping me make a course. And so that's the kind of mentor you want. Find a meetup of what it is you want to do. Do you want to do sales? Do you want to do real estate? Do you want to do I don't know, crafts. Find a meetup in your area that, has a group of, those like-minded people, and the right mentor will gravitate. You'll gravitate to each other, and it'll just naturally happen. And so you find that mentor, and off you go.
Yeah, you're the product of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And one thing that stuck out to me about your mentor was that it seems like she continuously pursues different ventures that might be out of your comfort zone. Because for me, at least, writing a book, it's like, well, I have hesitation whenever. So if you told me right now, hey, write a book, I'm like, I don't know. But she seems to keep on pushing you to different things that might get you out of your comfort zone, and I think that's so cool to have someone that maybe has already experienced something like that, and so they say, well, Jennifer, why don't you just write a book? That's like, and then you think, oh, well, why not? So I think it's great to find, like you said, someone that continuously pushes you towards something new and something better.
Yeah, find that person, and don't ever let them go. And yeah, and to your point, you're the 5 people that you hang around. So as you grow, and you think, and this is me, so I'm speaking for myself as a single mom, I'm hanging around losers, right? I'm dating losers. I'm not in the environments that I should be in if I'm going to do better and be better. And so when I changed that, my life changed drastically. And so think about that, who look around you. Are the people that you surround yourself, are they loving you? Are they encouraging you? Are they helping you? Or are they part of the problem? And I would encourage anybody who, if they're part of the problem is the people they hang around, I encourage you and pray that you will be strong enough to just cut those ties, to move on. I have cut many a ties that I did not think I could ever live without these people, live without these friends. And, it's been 4 or 5 years since I've even talked to them, and my life is better for it. So, have the courage to cut out, dead weight. It's necessary.
How could... I'm just curious what you would say to this. How do you cut somebody out of your life? Let's say one of the losers, or maybe, just a friend that isn't progressing you.
I mean, it's rip that Band-Aid off, right? And I mean, it probably is going to have a conversation where I'm moving forward, and, offer for them to move forward with you. And that's the thing too, is, as you grow, it's more likely they're going to drop off anyway, because, your success is going to aggravate them, right? They're not going to accept it, or they're going to be jealous. And a lot of times they just fall off on their own. Right. But in some cases, like, there was a conversation that had to be had. Like, I don't feel like you support me. I don't feel like you love me. We're not a good fit for each other anymore. So we're just going to have to stop this relationship unless, you can move forward, unless you can support me. And a lot of times they don't care anyway. And right? Those people that haven't supported you and haven't been kind to you, they don't care anyway. They're like, good riddance to you. So it's a lot of times a lot easier said than done. Some of those things have to be a progression, right? Where you don't talk to them every day. You talk to them once a week, and, kind of, just let it slowly die out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Jennifer, I really enjoyed this conversation and everything we talked about. Even though I'm not a single mom, I still picked up a lot of good information, and especially hearing the story about Cameron. That was really, I really appreciate you opening up and talking about that. And before we depart, I just want to ask you the 3 questions I ask every guest. The first being, if you could recommend a book to our listeners, what would that be?
A book that I love, anytime anybody asks me this question, it's the same book every time. It's The Search for Significance by Robert McGee. And it was a book that literally changed my life. It is a biblical book, and it is a workbook. So it's going to hurt. So if you harbor any guilt whatsoever, if you harbor any, I don't know, depression, towards yourself, any ill will, just that book. It was a Bible study that I did, and they had the book. I actually left the Bible study on the second day because I could not do this book in the presence of anybody else. This book broke me, and I did it by myself in my bedroom, sobbing. But it was a book that it was a major breakthrough for me and the things that I harbored, and it was easy, I was able to let go of a lot of trauma, a lot of grief, and a lot of baggage. So, and they have one for teenagers too. So The Search for Significance, I believe, for teens. So if you have a teenager that's struggling to fit in, struggling to find their identity, struggling with depression, this is an incredible book. Now, I haven't read the book for teens, but if it's anything like the adult version, it's powerful.
Robert McGee. Okay. I feel like there's always so many good books, and I'm so surprised that I haven't heard about them. And the list keeps on piling up. And so I really appreciate you sharing that, because I have to go look at that myself now. And Jennifer, where's the best place that people can learn more about you?
Probably the easiest place is my website, which is www.vorsainvestments.com. But of course, I'm all over social media, Jennifer Falloon or Vorsa Investments.
Okay. And if you can share with our listeners one takeaway from today's show, what would that be?
Just because your bank account is broke, don't let your mindset be broke. Right? Those are two very different things. What is in your bank account and what is your mindset can be two very different things. So if you don't have any money in your bank account, don't let that go to your mindset, right? Just keep persevering. Have that mindset that, what, I am too going to be successful. I am too going to succeed. I am too going to get through this season.
That's amazing. Jennifer, I really want to thank you for being here. Again, I enjoyed listening to your story and just, again, speaking to you. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caleb. This was fun.
And to all the listeners, we appreciate you tuning in, and we will catch you at the next one.
It's time to grab your victory. Find us on the web at redseacapitalgroup.com and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Red Sea Capital Group.